How we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here, and welcome back to another video. So today I wanted to talk for a few minutes about how I personally go about making and setting my characters up in a way that can make loads of gold really quite easily and long term without a lot of effort. And that's the key thing here. It takes a little bit of setup, but once you're done, you're off to the races. It's a really simple process. I've tried and tested this a few times so far. One of my big goals for Shadowlands was to expand onto multiple servers, and I've used this process a couple of times. I'm now getting myself set up on Draenor, as you'll see on screen here. For those that play in the EU, you'll probably be aware that Draenor is one of the biggest servers. Between Draenor and Kazakh, I think those are the two big servers in the EU. Close to 200,000 players or something ridiculous on each one of these servers. So it's the place to be. It's where everything's happening, and I decided that if I want to make a lot of gold and I want to do it quickly, Draenor is a place to be. Apologies to anybody who is already on Draenor. But we're going to go through today in a little bit of detail about how I've got myself set up, the process I've gone through, and kind of the steps that I try to follow to get to a point where I just make loads of gold really easily. Before I do that, though, I want to give a bit of a shout out to my patrons. You guys are the ones that give me the flexibility of not chasing things like ad revenue, and it gives me the ability to stay away from clickbait and the sort of, annoyances that you see so frequently on YouTube. So big shout out to my patrons. All the goblins over there get some nice little perks as a thank you from me for supporting the channel. Things like premium Discord access, where we talk about the latest and greatest goal making. You've got my full TSM profile available to silver goblins and above as well. So there's some cool perks in there as a thank you from me, guy. Thank you from me to you for supporting the channel. But enough shameless promos. What do we do to start off with then? If you're starting from zero, absolutely nothing, what is the first thing that is sensible to do? And what is the first thing I do? I create myself a druid. This druid we have here is one of the first characters. It wasn't actually the first character, but for the purpose of the guide, I would suggest the first character you make is a druid. Whether you like the druid class or not, it doesn't really matter too much, because we're not actually going to be playing this character as a character. This is going to be a farming druid. This is going to take herbalism, and it's going to take mining, and it's going to gather. It's going to level by gathering. Now, obviously, there are some hurdles to cross at the beginning of that. You firstly probably want to level normally to level 30. By the time you get to level 30, you unlock flying, and unlocking flying greatly increases your efficiency when farming. Now, of course, until you get into Shadowlands content, you're going to be farming past expansion stuff. There are a bunch of farms that you can do for past expansion stuff. Make sure you stay tuned. We're going to focus on some of those in sort of micro mini videos coming soon. But there's loads of things you can farm. Saronite ore, ghost iron ore, whiptail, cinderbloom. There's a whole volatiles, primals. The list goes on. There's bunches and bunches of things you can farm. And that's what I do first. I get a farming character. I go out there. I do a little bit of farming. I do the legwork, right? It's the legwork of gathering something that is valuable to something else and then selling it to them. That basically gives us a bit of flexibility, right? It gives us a little bit of starting gold to be able to level up some professions. And that's where my other two characters come into play. I usually pick classes that I'm quite comfortable at playing. You're not probably going to play these characters as mains ever. These are basically profession junkies. They have two professions on them each, and the professions are synergized, paired together in a way that promotes good goal making. So for me personally, it depends on what your end goal is, but for me personally, my end goal on any realm I move to is get to the point where I can quite comfortably sell the base legendary items. Without question, the strongest, most overpowered goal making method in the game right now is crafting and selling base legendary items. So far this expansion, it has made not only myself, but many players who have done something similar, millions and millions of gold. I'm nearly surpassing 40 million gold on my home realm now, all from basically crafting and selling legendaries. Super powerful. So, what professions do we take on these two? Well, you've got jewel crafting, leatherworking, blacksmithing, and tailoring. Those four professions by themselves will be everything that you need, almost everything that you need to get fully up and running with legendaries eventually. This is the legendaries is the end goal, right? We're not going to get there yet. We got to get to that point. So we start off by doing some farming. We go out. This character has barely done a single quest. It's leveled to 59 so far with pretty much nothing more than doing some gathering. Anything we gather goes on the auction house. We'll talk about auction house in a minute because it comes into play big time. When you're doing some farming though, it's time consuming, right? Generating that gold through farming is quite time consuming. There's always a limit to how much gold you can make with farming. And that limit is usually based on just how long are you willing to spend farming. During that time though, so you don't burn out, do it at your leisure. You have plenty of time to level up your other characters. I cheat. I use the gold that I've already made. I buy boosts. That got me to level 50. As of now, you can actually boost all the way to 60, but I understand there's a sizable cost there. If you don't want to spend the money or spend the gold to buy the boosts, just level the characters normally. Leveling speed nowadays is really, really quick. But let's talk professions then. Let's jump onto one of these characters and see what we've got to play with. Professions wise, like I said, I pair the professions up so that they work well with legendaries. I pair jewel crafting with blacksmithing, and I pair leatherworking with tailoring. At the moment, this means, now I do hope that this doesn't change in patch 9.2, but at the moment this basically means that they're paired up in a way that works nicely with each other. With the end goal of crafting and selling legendaries, tailoring is expensive for legendaries, today at least. Tailoring is super duper expensive for legendaries, for the higher end legendaries I should say. Tailoring needs to be paired up with another profession. It needs another profession that can make those Vestige of Origins, which for me in this scenario is why I have paired tailoring with leatherworking. When you get to the higher end legendary stuff, you don't want to be making your Vestiges with tailoring. You're going to want to be making them with the leatherworking. But like I said, legendaries is the end game. How do we get to the end game? Well, firstly, you've got to level those professions up, right? You got to get those professions all the way up to max level. And this is not too costly nowadays. I was actually able to level leatherworking, tailoring, blacksmithing, and jewel crafting, and enchanting actually. We'll talk about enchanting in a minute. I was able to level up to max most of these professions for about 10 to 15,000 gold each. It really doesn't cost a huge amount to level the professions up now. And it's the core foundation of stuff that you learn when leveling your professions up to skill 100 that we're going to sort of rinse and repeat craft. If we look just for example at tailoring, I'll use the default WoW UI because it's a little bit easier to navigate. The default WoW UI, you can see that we have a bunch of stuff, right? We have the Shadow Lace gear, which is your level 60 stuff, and you have the Shrouded Cloth stuff. This is mostly your basic leveling gear, and then you've got your level 60 gear. Optional reagents become your friend, right? So in Shadowlands, they are referred to as Crafter's Marks. You want to spend a bit of time when you hit level 60 on these characters, unlocking the Crafter's Marks. Even going backwards, I should add. Surprisingly, Crafter's Mark 2, which is what you would get in patch 9.0 from Vanari, doesn't make a lot of sense to most people to go out of their way to get this, or to even craft this gear. But trust me, it's cheaper to make. It means you're going to be selling it for less, and it will apply to somebody. People out there still buy full sets of 168 gear. Why? Because they can't afford a full set of 200 gear. Or they can't afford, you know, their 230 and their 200s and their Dark Moon cut. They can't afford a full set, so they buy the cheaper stuff. So still crafting this sort of intermediate stuff. Only craft it in small quantities, mind. I only keep one of each item crafted and listed on the auction house. But you can sort of work your way up slowly. Use the foundation that you have with these professions to start making yourself a little bit of gold. Put that gold away, and eventually we'll look at investing that gold into legendaries. But for now, you can utilize these base professions pretty efficiently now for leveling crafting gear. You get to a point though, quite quickly, where you're dealing with a lot of items. this is where I introduce a bank character to my setup. We started with 3 characters on one realm. I chose to use a totally separate account to hold my auction house character. This is just a separate character. It's a level 50. It's not essential for it to be level 50 straight away, but you will need to level this character up because this character is going to be your enchanter. This comes into play when we get into legendaries. But it's my bank character that then sits at the auction house. It can be, you know, just keeping an eye on the auction house, dealing with auction house related stuff, whilst my other character is off what is currently grinding Death's Advanced reputation. But you can be doing a little bit of multitasking. People often ask me, is having 2 accounts really that much of an advantage? And God's honest truth, yeah, definitely. Storage space, instant access to a auction house, instant access to a guild bank, instant access to a regular bank, mailbox, all without moving. We're in Booty Bay, by the way, for those that are interested. Horde characters, if you have dedicated auction house characters, Booty Bay is the place to be. It is an outside zone. There is the chance, if you make sure you have PvP mode off, obviously. But Booty Bay is the place to be. This auction house is super powerful. But this does all my selling of stuff, right? I send everything to this character, and then it just gets listed. In regards to setting up a dedicated auction house character for this is where you probably want to get into the realms of using Trade School Master. Trade School Master, you can get away with not using it for quite a while. Initially, we started off by farming. Farming and selling materials on the auction house doesn't really need Trade School Master at all. It's kind of helpful to know what things like the market prices are for materials. But let's be honest, most materials you're just going to undercut the cheapest one and hope they sell quickly. That's kind of the plan with materials. When you get into crafting gear though, and crafting with multiple professions, you do need to really start getting up and running with Trade School Master. I have the luxury of being able to use my own long-time customized groups. You guys can get access to very basic, simple Shadowlands-based groups on my Discord. They are free for everybody to use, the basic groups. They are just every profession itemized nice and neatly. If you want something a little bit more sophisticated though, including the operations to get up and running, that's where my Patreon comes into play. The Silver Goblins over on Patreon get my full TSM profile, which not only contains every single profession with every single item crafted in it, but it also contains both crafting and auctioning operations to go with it. So it's a real one-stop solution to get yourself up and running. I would quote it in terms of hours spent to set this up. It probably saves the average person 4 or 5 hours of time to get this set up. And that's already on the basis that they know what they're doing with Trade School Master. For a novice to get up and running, this could probably take you 10 to 15 hours to try and work out how to do. So I think it's a relatively fair offering. Once you got up and running, it's just, you know, a little bit of rinse and repeat. You're crafting what's selling. You're only selling things at a profit, and eventually your goal total is going to go up. I guess I should give you a couple of sort of, numbers to work towards. When it comes to that early days farming, my recommendation is you probably want to farm 100, 200, maybe 300,000 gold worth of just stuff to begin with. Because you need a bunch of gold to firstly level up those professions. You then, once you've leveled up the professions, you need a bit of gold to buy the materials, right? You need to buy materials before you can craft the items, before you can then go out and sell them. I wouldn't recommend starting with much less than 100,000 gold. I mean, in theory, it's entirely possible, but it's going to be a very slow start. But of course, if you craft a few little things and post them on the auction house and you're kind of, not sure what to do, then that's where you can log back onto your main characters and do something that's going to give you a long-term benefit to your account. The long-term benefits are things like hunting down those rare patterns, hunting down bits and pieces that you can, grinding out those reputations. That is exactly what I'm doing on 2 characters now. I'm getting my Archivist Codex to tier 4, and I'm getting Death's Advance up to Honored. Doing both of those unlocks the most current up-to-date crafters marks. I'm also taking it one step further. If you're watching this video somewhat close to the time of the release of the video, I'm getting prepared for patch 9.2. I'm getting my 80 renown and I'm getting my campaign complete, just so that these characters, as and when patch 9.2 launches, they're ready to go. They're ready to rock and roll. Whatever Blizzard throws at us in terms of requirements to unlock the new stuff, I want these characters to be prepared. But of course, all of that preparation I can do whilst my auction house character is, you know, running in the background, slowly selling things. We sold some lightless silk half an hour ago. And eventually you'll have enough stuff on the auction house that you no longer really need to do any farming. And if you're really lucky, you'll also be selling a bunch of this stuff at the same time. Don't go too far out of your way to cancel scan on this low level stuff. For the simple reason of that you probably won't have too much competition anyway, and you got to be careful because the deposit fees do kind of start to add up eventually. You do too much cancel scanning on it. Post it for a small duration, 12 hours, maybe 24 hours, depending on your playstyle, and then just relist what doesn't sell, and obviously loot your winnings from the mailbox. But that's a process that I use to get up and running, and eventually, like I said, my end goal is to get to the legendary side of things. Legendaries is a whole new topic of conversation in itself, and I've done many videos in the past on how to get up and running with legendaries. Going forward into patch 9.2, legendaries appear to be here to stay. We're probably at this point about halfway through the Shadowlands expansion in terms of physical time. We've had a year. I would imagine we won't be seeing a 10.0 new expansion for about another year. So even if you haven't crafted a single legendary yet in Shadowlands, there is still plenty of time to make a bit of gold, do a bit of basic crafting, make a little bit more gold, and then get going with legendaries, and hopefully by the end of the expansion be a lot richer than you are currently. But I'll leave it there for today. That's basically all I've got. I wanted to talk in a little bit of detail how I get things set up, because I do get quizzed on it quite frequently. If you want to watch me do this live, I do this over on twitch.tv/Manthieus 5 days a week, Monday through till Friday. I'm always streaming either my restocking of items for listing, getting our characters set up with the reputations. We're doing something that's progressing our account. So feel free to jump in, say hi, ask your goal making questions. But that's it for me today. Enjoy the rest of your day, boys and girls. Have a good one, and good luck goal making. I'll catch you all next time. Peace.